Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
James not feeling too well.
He had me booster last night. I'm feeling a bit cold.
You are boosted.
I'm boosted. I'm vaxxed. Just in time for West Ham's visit this evening.
You're going tonight, are you?
Yeah, of course.
Obviously. I was talking to my cousin earlier. He went. He's going to the game tonight as well.
How was your Sky week?
77 points, which was basically Cancelo captain, Rudiger, Rafinha captain, and then I had blanks from Ben White and Mo Salah. No one else played.
No, well, yeah, it was obviously a difficult weekend for so many. I chose to do absolutely nothing. So I had Cancelo's 48 points on Sunday as well. Rafinha, I captained on Saturday for 16 points. So it's handy to take the 64 points from the two captains over the weekend. My only other players who played were... Are you sure you're not sick as well, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm all right.
Rudiger 9 points, Laporte 12, Gabriel 2, Bernardo Silva 3, Mo Salah 2 were my only other returns. 92 points for myself, leaving me at about 1,200 going into a period which is now incredibly unpredictable. And that's the main reason why I didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, unlike FPL where you get your one free transfer a week, so you're constantly ticking along, here you can just hold back, take a massive back seat, do nothing. And the gains with 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s, 4-for-1s, when there's loads of double game weeks coming up, is massive.
If they happen.
They will happen.
Well, yeah, they will.
Your worst case scenario is there'll be a couple of good 3-for-1s.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely going to be some gains to be had over this period. But there's certain things...
Over the period when we know what's happening with the fixtures.
Well, we know that obviously the FA Cup third round replays have been binned. There wasn't a set date for FA Cup fourth round replays anyway. They were kind of scheduled for European nights, which I don't know what that was going to mean if Leicester City had a fourth round replay and are in the last 32 of the Conference League. When were they going to play it? So that only gives Leicester, for example, only gives them one slot back should they, say, beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup this evening. And of course, it's all well and good. Everybody's thinking about, this game can go here, this game can go there. And we'll talk about it a little bit. But reality is still games that could get postponed as well on top. So I don't know if the Premier League's going to be in a rush to rearrange things. When you look at fixtures like, say, Villa-Chelsea this weekend, you have to think with the problems Chelsea have had, and I know they are going to play Brentford this evening, but probably with an extremely weak team. And obviously Aston Villa shutting their game off on only Saturday really late before kickoff. You have to think, for example, that fixture is probably in doubt a little bit.
Yeah.
So the situation is obviously constantly moving. How many teams are going to play on Sunday, test all their players on Monday, and it's like, we've got a problem again now. And there's a number of teams that haven't gone through the problems yet. Certain teams like Tottenham, you kind of feel like they've been through it. The majority of the squad, or at least half the squad, have had it. They're probably a little bit safer going forward. Whereas there's a number of clubs who, like Arsenal, for example, have not had any real problems over this period. Is it suddenly going to turn up for them? It seems like every other London club's had issues. Yours is another one, Suj. I know you lost the game against Norwich. There's some rumours that have been floating about this morning about Mikel Antonio. I don't know if they're true or not. So the situation can still really change, and it's moving constantly. And I've not kind of overthought what will happen with the fixtures, because after tonight we can narrow things down a little bit more. So give an example: Tottenham playing West Ham this evening. If West Ham win, in theory, Tottenham could play in the midweek commencing Monday the 3rd, Monday the 10th, and Monday the 17th. Could have 3 extra midweek fixtures thrown in there. Now, if Tottenham win and the Carabao Cup semi-final stay as 2 legs, which nothing's been said differently at the moment, then there's a maximum of 1 extra game for Tottenham. So that's why I've not really overthought things till we get through tonight. Leicester is a similar situation, right? Well, in Leicester's case, you could look at Leicester and say, well, if they beat Liverpool tonight, which they may well do, because again, I think Liverpool will probably pick a very weak team, then they're going to have to play that midweek between the 18th and the 20th, Tuesday the 18th and Thursday the 20th. And they've obviously got a couple of games to reschedule now in Tottenham at home and Everton away. So for me, it's only really the teams that are still in Europe where the priority to organise the fixtures is actually going to exist. I mean, Tottenham technically have been thrown out the Europa Conference League, but there is a bit of belief that Tottenham intend to appeal the decision through the Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Yeah, I saw that in the news yesterday.
And it might be from saying, well, if Tottenham lose tonight, they've got 3 extra fixtures, most likely in January. Well, one of them might even be Rennes. Could still, in theory, happen, right? So I think you've got to kind of have your finger on the pulse and be ready to move. And I think most people probably shouldn't do anything this weekend in most cases, and wait till we get to the other side of next week. So certainly sort of up towards Wednesday, Thursday, there's a couple of teams maybe you can go and attack. But I wouldn't be looking to make moves for like the Boxing Day fixtures unless we've got confirmation of fixtures beforehand, or you've obviously got injuries in your squad or players definitely ruled out COVID, then fair enough. If you've got 11 playing players, I don't really see people making a move on Boxing Day. And obviously you've got the entry Manchester United on Monday, which is quite interesting because a number of people will be sitting there with, I think, none or one Manchester United asset, and we're probably looking to go to a second on Monday night. We think Ronaldo's not been training.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean that he won't be available. The game's not till Monday, right? But we think at the moment that that's the current situation. Now, we can all kind of speculate however we want from that. But I guess a lot of people will therefore, even those who have Ronaldo, will probably want/need to buy a Manchester United player on Monday the 27th. And they could have 2 extra fixtures go into these kind of 3 midweek periods because they're out the Carabao Cup. They're 2 opponents that they've got to rearrange against Brighton and Brentford. Brentford should Brentford beat Chelsea in the cup tonight, which might seem unthinkable, but they might, depending on what the Chelsea team is. Then I think we could conclude that Brentford and Manchester United would go between the 18th and the 20th, and the Brighton game will probably happen on the Carabao Cup semi-final dates. But Sky have the coverage for the Carabao Cup semi-finals. Are they going to want to be sharing them nights with BT and say Amazon lose some games next midweek? Are they going to want to be sharing their coverage or even sharing their coverage with other Premier League games on those evenings? Because I think the number one reason why the 28 fixtures hasn't gone is because it would have blown up all of Amazon's schedule. And a big selling point for Amazon has been obviously that we've got all the football over Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So I really think that's got a lot to do with the fact that those fixtures are still on at the moment, which is probably the skeptic in me, but that's how I feel. So there's no guarantee that midweek fixtures are going to get thrown in everywhere. I think those with a necessity, like Leicester, Chelsea's rearranged fixture against Arsenal, which would have been after overhaul, probably get that into that midweek between the 18th and the 20th, especially if they beat Brentford this evening. I've tried to work out and look at some of the dates to see certain fixtures that may land as a single game day. And it's really difficult to predict. There aren't many that could land on, say, Thursday the 20th at the moment, for example. In fact, technically right now, if none of the weekend fixtures move for the Friday the 21st fixtures, then there isn't a fixture currently that can go on Thursday the 20th, which is a spare midweek. Now, I think they'll move the Watford-Norwich game.
Right.
If it comes to it, I think they'll move that back to like Sunday lunchtime or something.
Thank God, because that as a single game day is a pain in the arse.
Well, yeah. And then what that does is it opens up the door for Watford Palace fixture, for example, on Thursday the 20th, which won't be a problem to many people because many people are going to have Gallagher, for example. And they've got a single game day still to come after that against Brighton. Or is it before, actually? I think, and that it is after, isn't it? I think it's Friday the 14th, so it's before. So you could have Palace having 2 single game days actually in a row. So for those still sitting there without Gallagher, oh my God.
Get him.
Another one could be that they move, say, United and West Ham to Sunday the 23rd. That would then, if they move the Watford Norwich fixture, would open up West Ham and Norwich to go on that night, for example, as well. I don't think that, however they rearrange those midweek fixtures, unless we just get kind of the odd ones thrown in with the European teams, like say Leicester against Tottenham, for example, I don't think that they're going to spook people too much from a captaincy perspective. I mean, if Tottenham end up with 3 extra games, I think most people are probably going to go and buy a Tottenham player, for example, because of the massive gain on that. You're looking at potential like 6v2s without captaincy and stuff like that. So don't think there's anything that's going to spook people too badly, but it's really unpredictable. The other thing is, my opinion, Suj, that I think we'll end up going behind closed doors in January.
Yeah, I mean, we know what's happening in Wales and Scotland now, a little bit more clarity around that. And we'll follow suit. I think there's rumours that there'll be an announcement for the 28th onwards for the UK in terms of stricter measures, unless you live at 10 Downing Street, in which case you can do what you like. But yeah, there'll be stricter measures. And if we follow Wales and Scotland...
Mate, if that geezer had said to me last night, you're not going to see your mum on Christmas, like as if anybody was going to listen to him. The fuck? Obviously, if games are behind closed doors, you don't have to worry about fan impact. So there's two sides of this, and it depends what side of the fence you sit on.
You can arrange games at short notice, right?
Well, and you can put them at like 6 o'clock and stuff, which I can't really do with the fans and stuff. In any sort of city region, you can't really do it. Obviously, if it's behind closed doors, then moving things like the Watford Norwich fixture and Man United West Ham fixture to Sundays and stuff, they don't have to worry about anyone but the two teams. They could do it at a week's notice, for example. Just right, okay, fine, we're moving this. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. But also, if there aren't going to be crowds, why do the clubs who are not in European competition, why would they want to rush to rearrange their games? What's the interest of Southampton and Brentford wanting to force in having their game replayed in an empty stadium when Southampton are going to lose out on gate receipts, for example? I'm sure Brentford don't want to lose out on having Manchester United at home in front of a crowd. Now, that situation might be a bit different because United's involvement in Europe. But I don't think there's a guarantee of, we're suddenly going to get an extra 6 fixtures in that week between the 18th, 20th, because the FA Cup third round been called off. I don't think it's a guarantee at all. But in certain circumstances, like with Tottenham, for example, if Tottenham lose tonight, then I think, you could have all 3 of those rearranged games. You have to think about, and it's non-Sky discussion, the integrity of the league as well, right? If Tottenham have all those 3 away games scheduled, Burnley, Brighton and Leicester, and they're all behind closed doors, it's got to be an advantage to Tottenham.
Yeah, of course.
The fact that they don't have to play against a crowd. So it's interesting. I wouldn't guarantee that like everything's going to get crammed in there, because I don't think it necessarily makes sense to be rearranging games that don't necessarily need to when there are empty spaces further down the line in the season. If you take all these games that have been postponed, say the FA Cup 5th round is midweek fixtures, there's a chances that you could stick a Premier League game on that night, right? Further down the line, you look at like 2 teams are out of the FA Cup, fine, you can play this night. For the non-European teams, I'm not convinced that there's such a panic. So I'd calm on assuming, Burnley, Brighton and Tottenham are the 3 teams who've got 3 games to rearrange. I'd calm down on the idea of, they're definitely going to have 3 extra fixtures in January. I'm not certain that's going to be the case.
There's a lot to unfold. I think it comes back round to what we were saying at the start. This weekend is probably not the weekend to be making moves. And I've got 28 transfers left. I'm going to be trying to hold back as many as I can until we have clarity, and really trying to maximize some gains when there is.
Clearly, you're holding them back. I've got 23 left at the moment. And I'm sure, the intention wasn't to be doing too much more in this period, but I'll probably selling Mo Salah for someone. Assuming AFCON goes ahead, which we think at the moment it's going to. But obviously, if there's gains to be made, like if those 3 Tottenham fixtures do go in there, then you're going to want one, for example, I think. Yeah.
Let's just cover off captaincy, and then we can look at some of the questions that we've had on Twitter that are no doubt going to be around this kind of craziness that we're looking forward to in the next 2 weeks. We obviously have Boxing Day on Sunday, and then the full suite of midweek fixtures as part of this match week. Boxing Day on Sunday. Can you look past Mo Salah at home to Leeds? Leaky Leeds, we're going to call him now.
Not if he's in the team. No. I only have Salah from Liverpool, so I need to give some consideration in terms of what I would do if he's not in the team. And it might be that I revert to someone who looks pretty solid to play, maybe even something like Gabriel away to Norwich, for example, and just go down that route rather than gambling on Cancelo playing Leicester. Although in City's case, they obviously don't have a midweek fixture this week. They've got Leicester Sunday, then they've got Brentford on the Wednesday, then Arsenal on the Saturday. So with the 3-day gaps, is it is it conceivable that Cancelo will play all three of those games? I mean, yeah, it probably is. So it might be that I'd gamble it because the upside of him is so massive, right? Most passes in the league this season, attacking for every single game. That haul on Sunday has been coming every week for ages. And I think so many people, because it was the earlier kickoff and you could see the team, went that way rather than Mo Salah on Sunday, who didn't have obviously the easiest fixture at Tottenham. But yeah, if Salah's in the team against Leeds, then yeah, there's no gamble against there.
Yeah, indeed. My backup plan at the moment would have been Antonio, but at home Southampton. But obviously, if the rumours are true and he's got COVID, back to the drawing board with that one. Monday night, can't look past Ronaldo, surely.
Well, I've said I think there's a fair chance that he won't play. So what do you do then? What have you got? Just Ronaldo?
Just Ronaldo.
So I'm sitting there with De Gea as well. So, I mean, if that's the case, I'd obviously just captain De Gea. And I think De Gea is a player that people should consider anyway, in terms of likely nailedness of starts over this period. Harry Maguire, and it don't appeal massively, but United look better defensively under Ralph Rangnick so far. I would say he's about 9.3, I think, Suj. Harry Maguire would be a big differential. And in some of the fixtures they've got, like Newcastle, Burnley, and to a lesser extent, maybe Wolves, those single game days, there might be some passing tiers actually for him. So I think that's an interesting one. Bruno Fernandes. I think Bruno Fernandes will get some interest because I think that a few people might move on Salah on Monday the 27th. And if people were planning Salah to Ronaldo on Monday the 27th and Ronaldo's not in the team, I think the instinct of many people will be, I've got the money, I'll spend it. I don't think Bruno's a great shout at the moment. And arguably, depending on what your system is, I'd arguably maybe prefer Marcus Rashford.
I was going to say maybe that might be a better option.
At the moment, who looks like he's going to be Ronaldo's striking partner. And obviously, if Ronaldo's not in the team, you have to assume that Rashford will play. And United kind of have the biggest benefit of the Christmas period. It's shitty for their fans, the fact that they've got 3 evening kickoffs, but Monday, Thursday, Monday is manageable. So a lot of these players could play all 3 games for United.
What about Tuesday, the 28th of December? Mo Salah has Leicester away, so perhaps a trickier fixture. Are you tempted to look away from Salah, or are you going to, like Gallagher at home to Norwich? Seems like a really good fixture.
That's one of them where they'll obviously assess the situation on after Leeds, which, whatever you think of them at the moment, playing Leeds is an intense game of football, and they will just look at recovery and pick the 11 players based on the recovery. That's what they'll do. I don't think there'll be any planning to, especially with the current situation at Liverpool where there might be a virus spreading, to look at any further than get beyond the Leeds game. What's the condition of players? Okay, fine. Pick a team that's in good condition. Because Leicester go to Man City 2 days earlier as well, so they may have to rotate a little bit as well. So it would depend on the confidence in terms of, do I think Salah's going to play? In terms of alternatives, there is an obvious one. Conor Gallagher.
Yeah, that's the one that I've got earmarked at the moment as captain, mate. I think I'm going to go against Salah and go with Conor Gallagher.
Home to Norwich. For those who still got Tottenham players, Kane and Son, you would think, will play the games. So interesting options. For yourselves, Suj, you've obviously got Watford away. Someone like Jared Bowen. Antonio, I wouldn't think would play 26th and 28th, personally.
No,
so if he's got COVID. If he played the 26th, I would not be putting the armband on him without seeing the team, despite the fact it's Watford. And obviously Arsenal assets. So I might even be Gabriel again for me, Tuesday 28th. Not that passing tiers particularly look likely against this Wolves team. There's been a big decrease in terms of players hitting passing tiers against Wolves this year in comparison to last year. But I mean, they're pretty toothless going forward, aren't they? There's always the potential for the whole Arsenal win 1-0. Gabriel scores 32 points. Thank you. Move on. And obviously that's the early kickoff as well, Arsenal Wolves. So if I've got doubts, I might even just defer to that actually. Those who've got Smith Rowe, Saka, I know a few like Bradley Parker, Wolves correspondent, gambled on Martinelli last Saturday. If they're in the team, they're reasonable shouts for that Tuesday the 28th.
Wednesday the 29th, I suppose you've got City are away at Brentford and Chelsea are at home to Brighton. So for me, Cancelo is first choice, Rudiger second choice.
For me, I've got a little bit more movement that night because I've got Laporte and
as
David
well.
Silva as well. So my preference.
No, you don't. Are we doing
Fucking
this
hell.
again?
I actually done that again, haven't I? I just got to call him Bernardo, haven't I, and get over it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's why his name comes up in FPL and stuff.
I know it comes up with Bernardo, but I'm intent on saying it really annoys me. His surname's Silva. He used Silva. I have Bernardo and Aymeric Laporte to go with as well, and I would, if they're in the team, I'd have a preference on them over Rudiger, who I wouldn't be convinced that Parson-Thierry is there against Brighton personally.
And then last but not least, Thursday, the 30th December, Ronaldo or your Manchester United asset.
United player, yeah. And like I said, I think a lot will go and buy those who've already got Ronaldo, I think will go and buy a second United player on Monday the 27th. And those who've got none will probably look at an alternative to Ronaldo and then go to Ronaldo on Thursday the 30th if he's back in the team, for example. Interestingly, it's a nice entry point for Everton. And Everton have some interesting fixtures up to overhaul. Newcastle at home, Brighton at home, Norwich away, Villa at home. And obviously the Leicester fixture could get thrown into there as well, which would be quite a nice 5 fixtures, actually. And if we were aware that Everton-Leicester was going to land on a Thursday and be a single game day, for example, then that's your point. We're really to look at Everton all of a sudden, which brings, if Calvert-Lewin, I reckon, is going to be available this weekend. I don't know if it's going to be available to start, but then again, look, Everton have got a gap from Sunday to Thursday in their fixtures, then don't play Brighton until Sunday. So by the time Newcastle comes around, Calvert-Lewin might be in the team, and he'll obviously be extremely lowly owned. Damari Gray, if he's overcome the problem that keeps him out the Chelsea game, is another interesting one. There are a number of teams, Suj, where entry points are really difficult. Yeah, and I think people should bear them in mind at the moment, because before the Carabao Cup semi-finals, there's a number of teams who kind of always go on first. They are Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Leicester, Manchester City, Norwich, Tottenham, Watford, and West Ham, which makes buying them players, unless you've already got options in your team, it makes them less appealing. But obviously, the majority of those teams I've named could land on single game days. I don't suppose anybody would be going and buying Arsenal now, because the only game they could have added extra is Chelsea, and then they'd have City, Chelsea, and Tottenham in a row, which wouldn't overly appeal. There are 5 teams we know that at the moment, unless they have something postponed over the next week, won't have additional fixtures in those midweek periods because they haven't had games postponed yet. Those are Leeds, Newcastle, Wolves, Manchester City, and Liverpool.
Right.
But if Liverpool win tonight, they're due to play Arsenal in match week 27. Now, if they draw Arsenal in the semi-final, then that game's definitely off in match week 27 because that's the same date as the Carabao Cup final.
Right. So one of those two would definitely go through.
So Liverpool isn't 100% definite no. They'd have to draw each other, I think, for you obviously to know that it's off. But if they know then it's definitely getting postponed, could they bring it all the way forward? I think probably not. That Liverpool's midweek is free before the final, in between match week 26, 27. It would probably more likely go in there, which is obviously after overhaul. But be just a little conscious that suddenly, say, Salah might go to AFCON and Liverpool might even have an extra fixture in terms of what you were thinking, which suddenly, if they've got fixtures which are like Brentford, Crystal Palace, and you've got Arsenal thrown in there, particularly if Arsenal was to be a single, does Jota, for example, become of interest? I guess Trent obviously would be of interest. Virgil van Dijk if he's recovered from COVID. So just be a little conscious that if Liverpool win tonight and draw Arsenal, that will definitely create at least one more postponement, although it's further down the line.
Good. Let's look at some questions that we've had on Twitter, shall we, James?
Let's do that.
Always the way. I'm going to go to the bottom and work our way up. And Albin Holmgren, his question is quite straightforward, James. What the fuck is Sky Fantasy? Is it only allowed in the UK? I mean, yes.
Yeah.
And yes. I don't know what
this individual is not listening to this podcast. He got bored 20 minutes ago, fairly obviously. But the answer is yes.
And it's an alternative fantasy game. All I would say is a VPN. FF Thinker, best United assets after Ronaldo in case he isn't available for the singles. Well, you've mentioned there, David De Gea might be a decent shout. Harry Maguire, Marcus Rashford, All interesting shouts.
I mean, those who've still got, say, Edward Mendy are definitely going to look at that De Gea move, I think, on Monday the 27th or Thursday the 30th to move that on. I mean, that whichever way you did it, there's gains all the way in terms of selling Mendy. Thursday the 30th would probably be the ideal time to move Mendy on. Then you keep him for the Brighton fixture and you lose him before Liverpool, before he goes to the AFCON. So I think De Gea at 7.2 is the standout. Harry Maguire's 9.4. If he could get himself fit, Raphael Varane at 9.2 would be really interesting. Dalot is 6.6. But I think what you want is, the reason you want the second United player anyway is just the cover for Ronaldo.
Backup.
So don't get another player that's potentially
not like
a rotation concern. If you compare Ronaldo with, say, Rashford, who's 9.8, what's the chance of neither of them playing at the moment? You think at least one of them's going to start, right? Yep. If you're comparing them. Not that I think there's a situation where Ronaldo and Bruno both don't start either. Bruno's just not justifiable, that 11.8 at the moment. But obviously, if you're selling Salah, you know the capability of the player. My intention coming up to this point originally was always to buy Bruno Fernandes. But shit might happen where suddenly you need the funds for certain other things at the moment with the fixtures. So I think Bruno doesn't particularly appeal. I'm interested potentially in the Salah to Rashford move. If United had 2 extra fixtures thrown in, I think I'd look at that at 9.8.
FPL North says, what are the main differences for double game week strategies for FPL and the strategies we should be using for SkyFF? I guess, firstly, in SkyFF, there are no double game weeks necessarily, because everything has the potential to be a double game week where you can daisy chain moves or jump on, jump off. Like, you could create your own double game week if someone plays on a Monday and a Friday, for example, versus someone that doesn't play during that time period. So I guess, is it a case of block out double game weeks from your mind, but just look at the bigger picture of 3-for-1s, 2-for-1s, 4-for-2s, that kind of thing?
Exactly that. I mean, technically, obviously next week's a double game week for all 20 teams, right? Because everyone's playing between Friday and Thursday twice. So technically, all 20 teams, as it stands, have a double game week next week. But I just split it in my mind in terms of it's a weekend, it's a weekend, it's a weekend. And don't think of it as double game weeks. You can get bogged down with that. Oh my God, they've got 2 fixtures. Yeah, but it's more a point. Do you want to buy the player on Monday? Do you want to buy a player on Wednesday, Thursday? Those are the days, unless you've got issues in your squad, that you want to go and buy in the players. So, yeah, I wouldn't think about it too much from a double game week perspective. It's all about in Sky Fantasy, where's the gains.
Chris Hermitage, is there any point making transfers at the moment, or is it wiser to simply hold and wait for double game weeks when there is hopefully less cancellations? I mean, I think there's a couple of things, right? If you've got a player that's got an injury long term and you know they're going to be out, then you move it on to someone that's going to play. And if you've got a player in your squad that you didn't want there anyway, like I had St. Maximin lingering around for so long, then move them on as well. There's no point in keeping a player you don't want or an injured player to wait for a fixture gain. I think at that point, if you know someone's playing, move it on. But other than that, hold back as much as you can to wait and see how the fixture mess unfolds.
I think caution should be observed. So, like in my second team, which isn't doing anything particularly to pull up trees at the moment, I've got Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah. And obviously, I knew Salah was obviously out of the Newcastle game on the Thursday. Therefore, he was probably going to miss the Tottenham game. You think, oh, should I just throw this to Trent? And I could have. And obviously, there's points out of that. But what I decided in my mind was this is potentially a couple of transfers. In terms of what if I do need Big Verge back when Mo Salah goes to AFCON? Now, that's probably less likely if I was moving to Trent, for example. But I'd have been making a transfer and wasn't captaining the player, and I just wasn't really comfortable with that at the moment when there's so much chaos going on. Like Saturday, if I'd not had a Rafinha or Gabriel, I would have bought a player in the fixture. I think that was the right thing to do. So at the moment, you've got to be a little bit more reactive to what's happening. And if you've got doubt, the best thing in most cases to do is nothing. Particularly if you don't need the captaincy coverage. You know, oh my God, the gain. Yeah, but you got a gain of 25 points or so, and you might want to buy back the player you're selling. Now then, is it worth it? And it becomes really borderline at that stage. So chill is the majority of advice. But of course, if you take let's say Villa Chelsea is off on Sunday because there's a problem with Chelsea, you'd have to suspect that their fixture against Brighton on Wednesday is also in danger. And then you look at that and go, well, there are obvious gains elsewhere. What do I want to do with it? And are they going to rush to rearrange Chelsea fixtures, even if they're out the Carabao Cup, when there's clearly an issue with the squad? That might be dependent on behind closed doors football. And behind closed doors football means more short notice announcements. You don't need to worry about anyone else other than the teams.
Yeah. And Luke wants to know if Ronaldo isn't playing, hold Salah for a further 2 games and bring in David De Gea. Well, yeah, why not? Seems okay.
Yeah, reasonable.
Fairly reasonable. Old boy Burn says, why can't I bring myself to use transfers? Have I been overcautious with 29 left? I think there's 2 sides of it. You can't know whether you've been overcautious yet until we know how the cookie crumbles on the other side with fixtures. So you might have really done yourself a favor and be able to really steam into some great upside early part of next year. But coming from someone that is overly cautious and is probably generally saves too many transfers, the downside of that is that you get towards the end and you're like, I've got too many to use, and you start just wasting them on stuff. So I don't know if there's no right or wrong answer to, are you being overcautious or not?
But even more so, I mean, like,
but it's annoying to get left. It's really frustrating at the end of the season to be like, oh, I've got to burn 4 transfers this week because I haven't used them and I don't really know where I want to use them. That's annoying as well. So,
what's one of the most frequent questions we get? How many transfers is it right to have left at overhaul? Yeah. Well, whatever your answer was a couple of weeks ago, it's probably different now, depending on the way these fixtures land, right? So you've got to evolve with the game and not be sitting there going, 22 exactly is the right amount of transfers to have left at overhaul. No, you have to move with the game.
Kermit the Winger, is the nearing return of DCL getting your turkey juices flowing?
No, not particularly.
Everton haven't been great,
but the way it lands is something to keep an eye on. I think most of us would want to see him start against Burnley on Sunday, and then we can make a decision on, is he capable of doing something against Newcastle on Thursday the 30th? Now, listen, a half-fit Dominic Calvert-Lewin is probably capable of doing something against Newcastle, and Everton will have a big uplift just from him being back in the team, right? We know in the early parts of the season they were very quick to get balls into the box for him. So, yeah, short term, I feel like Calvert-Lewin's never a player in Sky you particularly want long term. But as I said, if you're looking at Newcastle, Brighton, Norwich, Villa, and possibly Leicester at home getting thrown into that period, then it's interesting. And Calvert-Lewin is an alternative to, say you just go Ronaldo, on Thursday the 30th, if Ronaldo's not playing, you can buy Calvert-Lewin rather than a United player as an alternative. But then you may want a United player for Monday the 3rd anyway. So I think I'd still go with the United player.
All Bruno, with all the cancellations, are there any other players that you now have your eyes on that you didn't before?
No, not really. I mean, my idea is probably to do as little as possible and go over this period, because so much shit is up in the air. Go with need rather than want. I think there's a few budget players who are really kind of beginning to stand out that might be interesting on the other side of overhaul, like Aston Villa's Jacob Ramsey. Such, I want to say he's only about 5.8, for example. I mean, if you go with a midfield of like Ramsey and Norgard after overhaul, then you can have the 9 other best players from other teams if you want. I feel like I just want to check that price on Ramsey, but I'm pretty sure he's 5.8, Jacob Ramsey. I've had him obviously in FPL recently, doing a good little job for me. So he's one that I think wasn't on radar that's probably come towards the fore, but I'm not going to buy him now.
No. Daniel Barnes wants to get a Spurs player to replace Salah when Salah goes to the AFCON. Kane or Son is basically the question, up until overhaul.
So Tottenham obviously played 5-3-2 against Liverpool at the weekend. There is no guarantee that that's, going to stick in these upcoming fixtures. But Palace are a team who like to dominate the ball. If you're sitting with your Gahey's and Andersons and stuff, they'll probably hit passing tier against Tottenham if the game goes ahead on Sunday. And that counter-attacking nature to Tottenham at the moment makes me think probably for the first time in Sky, Son is probably the better pick. In this format, I'll always go Kane because of the shot volume. But at the moment, I mean, Harry Kane had a decent number of efforts again at the weekend, and it has been steadily on the increase since Antonio Conte came into the club. But with the price difference at the moment, it's probably just Sonny. Just Sonny. If the money's no object, I'd arguably still go Kane if it really doesn't matter. But I'd be conscious that suddenly I might need that money. So I think Son.
Oliver asked, in order to finish with a good rank, where should you roughly be in the rankings right now? And following on from this, where should you aim to become overhaul? I would answer by just highlighting what Cancelo did on Sunday. 48 points. You get 2 or 3 of those and you can suddenly half your rank massively. I'm at 10,800. I still think top 1,000, 1,500's more than achievable if we just plug away. So I don't think top 10K right now, James, to finish with a good rank is still okay, would you say?
Depends what
down
people,
to how many points behind.
It also depends what people are defining as good rank, right? I mean, Sid, you're about that level, right? Like, can you still finish in the top 1K? Yeah, sure. Easy. Can I at 1,200 still finish in the top 100? Yeah, of course. Can I win it from my position? I probably used a few too many transfers, and there'll be people around me who've got more left, who've got a better opportunity of that. But it depends what your goals are. What do you foresee as a good rank? How many transfers you got left? There's so many variables. And also, really importantly, we're not even at halfway yet. So players will emerge, right? And if you can think of like Iheanacho last year, right? We'd have sat here this time last year, Iheanacho would have never got spoke about by no one. If you were one of the first that was on someone like Iheanacho, you're going to climb through ranks, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So players will emerge in the new year who at the moment are not a consideration. For example, maybe like Dominic Calvert-Lewin or something. You get on early and you climb through the ranks and stuff. So there's a lot that can still happen.
Stian, Therapy FPL, where's that sexy voice gone? Or Stian, James going back to the lane tonight. And I'm sure he'll be back tomorrow.
Shit again tomorrow. Although I feel like I'm speaking out my nose at the moment.
Oh, dear. Is my cap player, Gary, are we best off trying to capitalise on the fixture chaos now and protect a rank, or save transfers and make it up in March to May? Feels a season where scoreboard pressure will actually count.
It's completely dependent on how these fixtures drop, right?
Agreed.
Completely dependent. If we get the fixtures drop and there's only like, they arrange for the teams in Europe like Chelsea and United and Leicester and stuff, and Leicester haven't got any single game days, how many moves do you actually want to make if you're sitting there with Rudiger, Ronaldo and another United player, for example? You just go with it, I think.
And Gordon Bell, he's thinking of picking up an Everton player for the start of their good run, but is worried about going too early. You jump on thing, you think there's a good run, and then you end up with stuck with the player. He's still got Bomo nightmares. I suppose if you're really risky and you don't want to, you're never going to captain the player, then don't go expensive. Maybe go cheap, like Gray over Calvert-Lewin. If you're worried about the downside, because then you're not at least killing a lot of your budget. The upside's there, the downside's less. But then if you wanted to target a specific team for a good run of fixtures, get the best you can, surely. So, it's a bit of a funny one.
That Everton-Newcastle fixture is a week away. We'll discuss it, I'm sure, more this time next week. We'll have a clearer idea of where we're at with his Calvert-Lewin back and stuff like that. I mean, do I want to go thumping into Damari Gray again, for example, just because Everton have got 5 good fixtures? No, but those who are sitting on him are probably going to stay sitting on him at the moment. So,
Javo, as a first-time SkyFF player, I feel I've used too many transfers on my main team. He's got 16 left. Aside from holding off on transfers until overhaul, how do you set up to become a dead team in Sky when you're running out of transfers? And 16 is probably a little low. It's not astronomically low, but it's a little low. Javo, I'll give one bit of advice and James will give you better advice, but spread your 11 players across 11 teams is a start point, because then you've got captaincy coverage on more days to cover off more potential cancellations and permutations and combinations. So spreading your team across 11 clubs is definitely one way.
Get yourself at overhaul the best player from 10 clubs or so. Get yourself Salah, for example. Get yourself Cancelo. Get yourself Rudiger. Get yourself Ronaldo if he's available, or if you want to have
even
De
like a
Gea in goal,
Norgard
whatever.
at Brentford and stuff
Exactly
like
that. That fills up the money, and it might give you some coverage somewhere. Jacob Ramsey at Aston Villa is another one who might step forward. You can have like Antonio or Bowen at West Ham. You could have Calvert-Lewin. You're picking Gallagher, obviously, at Palace. You're picking individual players, Lewis Dunk at Brighton. You're picking individual players to kind of fit the team in, so that until you've got injuries and stuff, you should be covered and ready to go. Now, of course, if you're miles behind and you want to chase people, you might want to consider an overhaul period going with Jota or Mane instead of Salah. You might want to consider going with Laporte instead of Diaz or Cancelo, for example, and you swing with the second best choices, if you will, Son rather than Kane, or Bowen rather than Antonio, Richarlison rather than Calvert-Lewin, etc., and do it that way and have some fire with it.
Yeah, agreed. The last question, James, I mean, we've answered it, but it comes from Dave Simple Goal. He says it's likely to be discussed, of course. Is the consensus now to hold transfers back, but there is an opportunity to play aggressively and cut up away from the pack? Apart from Chelsea, will we get many opportunities as fantastic as what could be coming? Real unknown.
Exactly that. That's why I think most people should keep their powder dry at the moment. Generally speaking, I think over this next week, I mean, for example, next Wednesday, 29th, I don't believe no one's got any Man City or Chelsea. If your player's playing, captain them. That's it. Don't overthink it. You shouldn't really be buying players on the 26th or 28th unless you suddenly walk into COVID/injury problems. So the target over the next week for most people is deal with the immediate problem. The immediate problem is if you haven't got, you want a Manchester United player for Monday night. And if you've only got Ronaldo, it's a fair chance it's not going to play. And therefore, you need to consider what you're going to do. Because United's fixtures, those three single game days of Newcastle, Burnley, Wolves, are quite powerful. And there might be two more against Brentford and Brighton to throw into what was already an attractive looking fixtures. I mean, what, Brighton are 11 without a win or something? Big injury problems, particularly defensively, some COVID issues as well. So, I mean, if you get those two, we will always looking at United's fixture run anyway. Although we've lost those two fixtures, they might get put back into here. Yeah. And then that makes them seriously appealing. At that point, I think you maybe even consider going more than two Manchester United and going 3 or 4 and really attacking it possibly. Some will do that if that's the way it lands.
Yep. A lot to kind of keep on top of. If you are an active Sky manager and are particularly keen on the game, then you may want to consider signing up to our Patreon, patreon.com/Planet FPL, because the Slack channel that we have for Sky Fantasy Football is particularly active. A lot of very good managers in there as well with kind of 3-figure ranks. And James produces a spreadsheet which helps you track the fixtures, single game days, fixture difficulty, and map out your strategy with Sky as well. So that's patreon.com/Planet FPL. Other than that, do stay tuned and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening, because as and when stories are unfolding, we release a piece of content each and every day. The fixtures are getting talked about on every show at the moment.
Absolutely.
Anything else to add Sky-wise, James?
No, I just wish all our Sky listeners a happy Christmas and good luck.
Indeed. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Back at you tomorrow with
Clash of the Correspondents.
That's it.
He's West Ham versus Southampton with Chris Stone and Matt Samuel.
Lovely. And when are you recording after the West Ham Spurs game?
Yes, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I bet Chris is looking forward to that.
I've right stitched myself up here all night, although he thinks I've stitched him up as well, depending on how the result goes tonight.
It's funny. Do you know what? All my West Ham mates reckon we're going to lose, and all my Spurs mates reckon they're going to lose. Like, I don't think it's weird. I haven't come across anyone. I think we're going to win tonight. It's a weird one.
It depends on the two teams that get put out a little bit as well. I mean, Conte's basically said that anyone who had suspected COVID is probably not going to start for Tottenham tonight, who started at the weekend. So I think we can presume that like Son won't start because Lucas didn't start. Lucas will start. Session's got an injury. Region was left out. Region will start. Skip will start. Ben Davis might not start because he was rumoured to have it. So it's going to be a bit of, I told you, I think it'd be a half and half kind of job.
Yeah, and we didn't play at the weekend. So where he would have changed the team, he's got more flexibility to go a bit more full strength tonight and keep some momentum before Southampton at home on Sunday. So yeah, really interesting to see. Clash of the Correspondents tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed for that.
And
Stay
Tottenham
safe.
on Patreon as well.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this weekend. Cue music, please, man. Show.